Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is Einat Kessler with Saturday Mixtravaganza. Today we're going to create a mixed media art journal page. And we're going to start with some acrylic paints. I have teal and yellow and some water on my tray. And I'm taking a brush and adding a little bit of water to the paint. And I'm starting to paint the page. I want to create a gradual change of colors. I ran out of green, so as we all know, yellow and blue or teal or whatever can create green. So this is the green, adding it to the page. Now we start with 3 sections of colors. That's yellow, green, and teal. And in order to mix them, the brush has to be wet. The secret is to have it wet with water, and then go over and over the layers with layers of paint. And this way we get a gradual shift of colors. And of course you have to dry everything completely before we add our second layer of whatever you want to add. Now I'm taking a sponge and some orange, and I'm going to use some stencils on my page. I know it's not clean. I'm very lazy at cleaning my stencils. I'm sorry, I apologize. So what I'm going to do is a blended effect of 2 colors. So I'm loading my sponge with 2 colors, one on each side like so. And we're doing it on a dry sponge. And when I'm dabbing the sponge on my page, the colors will start to blend because they move around the sponge. So they create sort of a blended look of orange and yellow. If you want more yellow or you want more orange, then you load more color to your sponge. So that's basically everything you need to know about blending colors on a stencil. The point is not for it to be completely blended and create a different color, but we want to see the orange and we want to see the yellow. So that means 2 colors that are blended together, but without not completely blended, so they won't create another color. When I'll remove the stencil, it will be more visible for you to see. You see, so you have some parts which are more orange, some parts which are more yellow, and if you have some paints on the side, then and it bothers you, you can cover it. I don't care. So we dried that. And now I'm adding a little bit of crimson, which is a kind of red, dark red with a little pink in it, I guess. I'm not cleaning the sponge. I don't care that I have color on the sponge because again, I want it to be blended. I don't want it to be pure red. So I don't care if some orange or yellow will show. So I'm adding small circles with my other stencil. And you know, journaling is something that is personal. So whenever you create a page, then you should add a message that appeals to you and that means something to you. Now after drying, we'll take some gesso and some toilet paper roll, and I'm a little bit of gesso on my page. We'll just remove it. It doesn't really matter because we're going to add gesso anyway, but I don't want it to smear, so I'm removing it a little bit with my fingers. We're going to insert the toilet paper roll into the gesso, so we're going to use it like a stamp and add more circles. And now we're gonna take after drying, of course, we're gonna take another sponge, a clean one this time, and just wet it a little bit, and load it with some gesso, and create sort of a, don't know if you can call it a shadow, another layer inside the circle, the big circles, just to give them more dimension. You just dab it a little bit with the gesso. It doesn't matter if it's a lot or just a little bit. We're drying every layer that we do so it will not smear, and it will be easier to work on the next layer of color, because it's all color, and if we want each pattern to be visible, we have to keep it dry. So I have here two wooden circles that I'm going to change brushes. I want a clean brush, a dry brush. I'm going to cover them with gesso because they have writing on them, and I don't want the writing to show. So I'm covering each circle with gesso. So what I started to tell you before about art journaling is that it's very personal, and it's just a way to put your thoughts and your feelings on paper. It doesn't have to be accurate. You just play around with whatever color materials that you feel like. And we're doing 2 coats of gesso, by the way. Sorry. So sometimes for another person, it's gonna look like it's not such a very nice creation, but for you, it means something, and it's important to you, and that's the whole point of art journaling. It's a way to journal your thoughts with art. So we have to dry those wooden circles really well. And now I'm going to add some alcohol ink. I'm just a few drops. The higher you do it, the more splatter you get. So just a few drops here and there. And of course you have to dry it. So now when it's dry, I'm going to use the back end of a brush. It's round, and I'm going to add small yellow dots with the end of my brush. So as you can see, we have a circle motif going here, in case you haven't noticed until now. And it will soon make sense why all the circles are here. And by the way, I really love circles, but it's not the reason that I decided to create them on my art journal. It's because of what I'm going to write. So adding more and more yellow dots. So I actually showed you a few techniques to create circles on any project that you want. You can use a stencil, you can use toilet paper roll, you can use the back end of a brush. Now I'm going to, with the same colors that I use on the big circle stencil, which is red, and actually the red, the yellow, and the orange, just around the wooden circles, just to add a little bit of dimension and framing. So I'm using that. And now I'm going to dry them very thoroughly, because I'm going to write on them with a pen. And if the gesso or paint or whatever you covered it with is not completely dry, it's going to ruin your tip of the pen tip that you're using. And believe me, I've ruined a few. And the pen is lost if you write on paint that is not dry or gesso. So make sure it's really, really dry. So what I'm going to write on my journal page is what goes around comes around. And I'm sure everybody knows the meaning of that sentence, but that's how I feel. And I wanted to create a page with that sentence. And obviously that's why I'm writing it on circles. And that's why all the circles are here, because of the round idea. So I'm writing with just a black pen, and it's a Sakura black pen. I really like them. Anyway, you just have to write it and make it a little bit bold so it will show. So I'm adding my two wooden circles to my page, and the rest of the sentence I'm going to write directly on the paper. So the part on the circles is what goes around, and then comes around is going to be written on the paper itself. And you just make it bold so it will be visible. And also, this is why the page itself, everything that is on the page has to be very, very dry so you won't ruin your pen and you can use it again. It's very frustrating when the pen is ruined. Believe me, I've done it a few times because I was in a hurry, or I was lazy, or I didn't want to wait for everything to be dry, and then the pen was ruined. So be patient. Patience is a virtue, or so I've heard. I'm not very good at that. Anyway, so this is my art journal page. I really want to thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll create your own journal pages with your own messages and your own sentences. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week.